25 to 35, 40% of your company. So an interesting part is that amount you're raising, assuming you're taking with VC of sufficient size, doesn't even matter. So basically, if you say, I think my post-money valuation is 10 mil, that means you're signaling I need that many millions for funding that will get your share to these numbers I indicated. You can name the number twice bigger. Of course, the whole point of that exercise would be now you need to prove that your market, your product is big enough to sustain potential exit price that makes it interesting for investor. And that's where the whole gray science begins, because of course it's impossible to prove, especially in advance, especially before that gray line. So investors actually look to all the indirect factors. Like I said, they look, have you done startup before? Do you know what you're talking about? They will trust you way more even if you just failed, but they know, oh, you run through the process, you understand what you're doing. At least you're not going to give us completely crazy estimation. So lots of first-time entrepreneurs, they come up with 1 billion market size plans and everybody understands, so you don't know what you're talking about. So I would say it's it's an all knowledge, and I recommend researching it a lot, because that's not even one talk. It's really a knowledge. It's almost a profession, and there is lots of understanding you need to understand in liquidation preferences and shares dilution and different class of shares and etc. etc. But all this information is publicly available. You can easily Google it, and effectively is the best way. If you're a first-time entrepreneur, the best way to deal with it is get experienced advisor, not necessarily on your board, just get an advisor, and there is tons of people who are doing that in Silicon Valley.
So what do you wish you would do differently now, both throughout the entrepreneurship process and the fundraising process, and even the selling process?
My main learning from my startup is in my next startup, I will be way more aggressive than I was. So we had sort of that fear of failure. As I said, people instinctively fear failure. They feel like, oh, taking extra 10 millions and burning them to the ground, that's probably a bad thing. I shouldn't take them unless I'm really sure. And our competitors did exactly that. They took way lots of money and used them extremely aggressively with extremely high risk. So in the second part, well, I would say this could be one of the most important advice, but it's really hard to act on this advice. The most important advice: people are everything. Pretty much everything else doesn't matter. It's all about your team. The problem with this advice, it's very hard to convert it to actionable items, because if I tell you, get a great co-founder, you don't find it on Craigslist. You need to get to Silicon Valley. You need to integrate into community. You need to live here for years to understand the value of different people you're dealing with. You need to understand the history. If you are 20-something-year-old, pretty much you have no way to do this at all, I think. You can only chance. You can only let's do a startup with my brother, roommate, childhood friend, and it's just pure luck. Is he a great co-founder or he's a bad co-founder? So my recommendation, if you have any option and any sort of life wisdom to evaluate people, network as much as you can. Just basically fill your days with networking. Evaluate as many, go to any co-founder dating events. Try to find the right co-founder. And because first three people you deal with, hire, or work with, they determine full fate of your company. Everything else doesn't matter. No, realistically, because again, it will be up and down. You will you will fail, iterate ideas. So the quality of products, ideas, iteration will be this first 3, maybe 5 people will be determined by that.
What are your criteria with those first 3 or 5 people, just in a nutshell?
Super high IQ, super high energy, doers, not pure thinkers. So this is with some twist to scientific world. In scientific world, there is lots of people who are very, very smart, but they're not doers. Realistically, in initial startup environment, that environment of this iteration, you will solve a lot of very hard, very poorly defined problems. So in science, we get used to very well defined, neatly formulated problems with either clear solution or no solution at all. In startup world, basically all data will be complete garbage. You won't have access to budget and research you actually need. You won't have time to do this research anyway. And it just basically is this kind of you and couple co-founders or you and first employees, you will need to figure out answer to the super hard problems on the fly under huge time pressure. The question is how good these guys can do all that in parallel, what sort of product and research and answers to hard problems they generate. So that means very smart, very hardworking, very high energy, and can do all that without like this couple of weeks without sleep.
Okay. So you talk about this fail early, fail often.
Fail fast.
Fail fast. So you talk about 3 months as being kind of a benchmark. Do you see that as primarily in the consumer web space?
That's specific for consumer web. So my metrics are definitely consumer web based. I would say in this scale is obviously kind of fractal. So I mean there is a time frame of testing a quick idea. There is time frame of kind of testing bigger product. Basically, in consumer web, rough yardsticks would be, I would say, you should have prototype of your product ready within 6 months. You need to launch it within 9 months. You need to get clear understanding of market reaction to your product within 1 year, and that may include like start of first iteration. Some people adopt even way more aggressive time frames than this, because as I said, basically time is money, and big successes, big exponential growth. I shown it happens very fast. You never mistake it. That's never like, oh, it's flat. And we will change the 3 dialogues and it will explode. No, it won't. It will explode. Like, I mean, look at early Twitter. It was the most horrible product on the planet. Look at some early version of other products. When product is successful pretty much no matter what. Despite all your effort to make it unsuccessful, it still explodes. And that's the criteria you're looking for. Because that means users have so much demand, so much kind of in love with that concept that they will use it no matter what.
So what are your thoughts on then Silicon Valley kind of moving, and maybe this isn't necessarily true, but moving a lot more into the consumer world with real products like we're seeing with a lot of the synthetic biology space and the personal
I think it's kind of slightly, kind of in broad sense of kind of general mankind and advance of science is kind of troubling tendency, but I completely understand the reason why it's happening. That's almost Darwinian selection. Let's suppose you small VC fund or angel investor, you can take your, say, $1 million and make like couple bets, and you will understand where these bets, did they work or not, within 1 year. In biotechnology, you probably will need to go 4 years with 10 times bigger bet to understand have anything happen. So it's your self-interest, oh, let's go to where cycles are faster, is let's go where consumers are. And it's kind of keep pushing people to this quicker return, quicker answer, quicker everything. And keep in mind that that system is, it's kind of self-feeding, because where Dave McClure got his money to invest in his own fund, he is PayPal Mafia. So all the early web people invest, there is PayPal Mafia all over Silicon Valley. But now there is Google Mafia. There is any successful web company, it creates hundreds of millions, they get to the founders and early employees, and what all those guys do, they keep investing in them. I heard completely apocryphal story. I don't know is it true or not, but you know, there is that very hot consumer e-commerce startup, Groupon. In this year, they got specific form of investment from that from Russian fund DST. Yeah, and this is specific form of investment. It happens with that very successful later stage companies. The founders get some money out of that investment. So they effectively sell some of the initial shares to investors to get some cash on the table. So what I heard right now in New York, there is an angel fund funded by Groupon founders with effectively money they got from DST investors. So within 1 year, these guys not only found a commercial exit, they already started their own angel fund. And of course, trust me, they're not going to invest in biotechnology. And so that system kind of feeds on itself and creates more. So obviously, now there is way more incentive to kind of try to do web startup. At the same time, if people don't explore a field long enough, there is more opportunities there, and you just need to kind of know what you're doing, sort of like, oh, that's definitely going to get big, and just go after the opportunity. Yep.
You talked about multiple startups.
Yes.
Would you suggest one startup at a time or overlapping?
Oh, no, definitely don't do overlapping. Okay. So I mean, no, so overlapping is out of the question. No, it's like you need to survive one to understand what's basically it's all focus. It's all about kind of if you pick idea, you pick a marketplace, you pick co-founder. Well, another big advice, heavens forbid, don't start without co-founder. Kind of, I know it's much more theoretically, commercially viable. You get more stock. My current belief is the more co-founders you get, the better. So maybe don't go over 5, that becomes. But if you can get like 3 people instead of 2, go with 3. If you can get like 4 people, even better. Because startups are challenging. It's really, really challenging. So you need to concentrate all your effort into that idea, into this iteration process. Try to make it work. And kind of, as I said, if it's successful, it will immediately try to kill you. If it fails, then restart. Restart idea, restart the team, restart startup. So you see, I kind of going by scale of bigger and bigger failure. You kind of do small failures, bigger failure. Okay, we guys hate each other. The startup didn't work. We'll go kind of outside and start new things. Yeah.
So I'm surprised you're advocating that more founders is better. I've been involved with many startups, and my experience has been the magic number seems to be 2. And even in history, triumvirates, that's groups of 3, never work. It just seems to be the statistical.
So remember what I said.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a co-founder. So when you have random set of people, like if you pick co-founder, because again, look, Bill Gates and Paul Allen, and they were kind of childhood friends. They did not go and do some special founder dating. So when there is more people which you did not select with specific criteria, I think you're right. It's the chances of picking up bad people automatically bigger than chances of picking up this extreme kind of startup-friendly individual.
Don't you think more gets done with 2 and there's less conflict of interest and less arguments?
I would say there is logic to your argument, so maybe I wouldn't paint it. Don't paint it so black and white. Probably me as a repeat entrepreneur, I mean, I will work with other repeat entrepreneurs, and for me it's like, okay, that's no-brainer. The more repeat entrepreneurs, because you will be surprised how closely we think and kind of how co-aligned we are kind of, when we chat, because we went through kind of same process, same pains, and same failures. There is way less things to disagree about. When it's first time, you understand, it's like person who you never really tested under high stress conditions, under those very challenging conditions. That's basically when the true colors appear. And if you, of course, if you have more people under the super high stress environment, all sort of explosions are possible.
Seems like the iterative process for the consumer web has almost reached the point where it's capable of being engineered and it doesn't require as much testing. Obviously, there's some individuality based on the product, but I mean, it seems like there's general rules that you can go by. So I was actually thinking, along the lines of the earlier question, would it not be possible to try to incubate 10 different ideas at once, wait to see which of them take off the best, along with maybe a couple partners and a group of web developers, and then focus on whichever ones attract the most traffic?
Well, I would say keep in mind that as you incubate these 10 ideas, you need to have at least one core owner of these ideas who thinks and breathes and lives this idea day and night. We can say, oh, this idea, this prototype will be 2 weeks. That means if it's 2 weeks in engineering tasks, that means it will take probably 2 months to actually build. And the quality of your product completely depends how kind of engaged, how kind of focused is that key person on the product. So another learning, for example, we had that outsourcing for startup is absolute poison. So never ever do outsourcing when you're early stage startup. Do outsourcing only when you're already going through this kind of explosive growth, because then it's pretty much becomes repetition of what you already have. So the reason outsourcing doesn't work is same thing. People just do that work as 9 to 5. It's not becoming the sort of lifetime mission. And that iterative process we discussed in the beginning, I think the key of this iterative process is that the product just lives on your head. You just go to sleep with it. You wake up with it. You're doing iterations every day. It's like you, especially in the web world, you tweak your front page, your login page, everything. You tweak it every day. You look at any tiny bit of data, and it's like, oh, if I change it to pink, will it attract more females? Oh, yes, it will. Oh, if I change this, so you just you like mental octopus all over the product. It's just lives